Greetings YouTube, and welcome to my latest build. This is gonna be a shield with some capacity for offensive ability. So here we have a satellite dish, and it is a fully kitted satellite dish. And I got this for nothing. This was just sitting by the side of the road. And I don't believe my wife knows I have it, because I think if she knew I had it, she'd probably be fairly annoyed with me. So the first thing I need to do is disassemble this so that I can get to the dish itself, because that's the only thing I need for this particular project is this thing right here. I have plans for this configuration here for a non-weapons build, like a shop infrastructure build. I think this may fulfill a niche in my shop, but that is going to have to wait for another day. Today is working on this. So first thing I'm going to need to do is turn this upside down, so put this so it's on the table, or maybe clamp it in place so that I can start looking at what I've got here to disassemble. There's a lot of fasteners here, and I have to figure out where I should start. Maybe with those right there, because they are the most screamingly obvious ones at the moment. Because I want to keep as much of this superstructure together as possible. I'm going to have to get rid of this cable as well, because I really don't need the cable for anything, at least not at the minute. Don't use a lot of cable in my life, other than the one that goes into my office and my living room. I don't really have a whole lot of need for cable. So let's get this thing disassembled, look at the components, and then I can work from there. So the disassembly is complete, and besides the base I showed that I may think I have a plan for in the near future, I ended up with this nice piece of steel rectangular tubing, which I actually didn't have in my collection. So maybe I'll find a use for that at some point in the future. So I'm going to put a belt here, and that's going to be the strap for my forearm, just inside the elbow. And then I'm going to make a grip here. I'm going to cut off this, deburr it, wrap it with tape to make sure the edges aren't too sharp, and then wrap a layer of yoga mat around this, and then tape that in place for a grip. Yoga mat is awesome if you don't have any in your collection as far as just everyday repair kind of things. I highly recommend it. You can make all kinds of grips and cushions and things like that, padding, very easily, and they're very inexpensive. I got mine for nothing. It was a gift from my wife, but you can pick them up at yard sales and at thrift shops for a song. And it is just nice foam that is easily formed to any shape you need it to, and you can cut it with a pair of scissors. It is great stuff to use. I love the yoga mats. In fact, this one I've got right here is getting down to the point where I may need to get a new one soon, because I've almost used all of it up. So that takes care of, those are the things I have to do first. I have to cut that, I have to mount I have to figure out how I want to mount this. And because once I get that done, then I know where I have those holes to have to be. So those will be the ones that I do first, and they'll be drilling from the inside, because it's easier to drill from the inside of a curve than from the outside of a curve. And I think I can probably use my drill press on this, because they're going to be next to the edge. So that's not going to be too difficult to get it into position. Obviously, you can't drill holes in the center of this with my drill press, because my drill press isn't going to have that much of a throat, probably. So I will have to use a hand drill. I have a really nice cordless 20-volt Works hand drill, WRORX, which I happen to really like. Now, this is the outside. And I think when I'm done, I may spray paint this a different color. I don't know. We'll see what it looks like when I'm finished. And I'm thinking of putting spikes on this. So I need to figure out where my arm is going to be, because I don't want any of the spikes to be on the inside. Well, obviously the spikes aren't going to be pointing in the inside, they'll be pointing out, but the nuts to hold the spikes in place will be on the inside. I'm going to make sure that they're not going to be in a plane of my arm. So I would make sure I've got, like, you know, a 4-inch swath in here where the arm goes. Probably this width actually right here is probably a good indication. If I can make that clear all the way across, then I know that my arm's fine. But that does leave a lot of other space in here for some spike options. So what I was thinking of doing is using find the center, put a line this way, and probably put maybe a triangle here and a triangle here for more of them, and use 3/8 inch diameter all thread, because I have a lot of 3/8 inch diameter all thread that I got for nothing. It was a donation that my company was throwing it away. Literally, they were going to toss it into a recycling bin. I'm like, I'll take that. So I got like 14 feet of all thread, which is an incredible price break. I mean, that stuff is not cheap. So, actually, can I use those holes? Now that I think about it, maybe I can use those holes. That'll make my life even easier. Because I don't have to drill holes. I'll check that out. But, so that will give me nice stout spikes, and I'm probably thinking, I'm going to try it. At the moment, I'm going to say 2 inches. Right off the top of my head, I'm going to say 2 inches on the spikes. But if 2 inches is too long, I may go 1.5 inches, because I want them to be both offensive and defensive, but I also want to go for a specific aesthetic. And the big advantage of the spikes is that up close and personal, you can actually use them to harm your opponent with them. But also it means that incoming items could get hung up on them, like a wooden weapon could get stuck on them. But even a bladed weapon can get, if it hits them, you could catch the blade of your opponent. And if you can just get that blade caught for a split second, which means you're delaying their backswing or delaying their recovery, that can give you the time you need to make sure that they don't get a backswing or a recovery. So yeah, that's definitely a big advantage, I think. And I also like the look of I like the idea. I don't know what that looks like yet. I like the idea of a spiked shield. I think that's a really cool concept. So yeah, let's do some layout. I'm going to need to figure out where I want to strap this, which is going to end up here probably, and figure out if I can reuse those. Cool. If I can't, I'll have to come up and move them in and make my own holes, because I think I need 1/4 inch holes. And if I can reuse this, I already have the fasteners that were already in this from this device, and I can just reuse those, because these have square holes and those are carriage bolts, which is nice because that way they don't turn or anything. Makes assembly very simple. These are probably going to be ignored. I'll probably just ignore those holes right there. They're just going to be holes. They're not going to really be in my way in any way, shape, or form, so I'm not going to worry about them. So yeah, first thing I'm going to have to do is disrobe slightly, because at the moment I'm wearing a hat and a hood because it's chilly in my basement. Because it is 23 degrees outside. But let's get this laid out. I'm probably just going to cut right across from inside of here, and then cut it off completely, and then I can do some deep burring on that. So that's probably going to be my first task. Well, second task, because the first task I'm going to see, can I reuse those holes? Because that would make my life easier. Let's hear it for my Works Nitro. I actually ended up putting this on the table. I laid down my yoga mat and used it as a cushion, which actually helped compensate for the fact that I had this with the curved surface facing down when I was drilling. So, and I just clamped it in 2 places, here and there, and that stabilized it enough that I could drill through there without any problems. Looking at this, I'm thinking I may want to reinforce this. So I'm thinking that putting a center strip of steel here and I'd almost want to put one in the middle, but that puts a lot of fasteners in my way, because that's where the handle's going to be, right here. That's the handle, and that is the strap. So there's the handle completed. It's all ready to rock. So it just needs to be put in place. So, I mean, obviously a strip across the center would be ideal, but again, that puts fasteners in the plane of where the arm is, which I don't want those. Unless I use a different kind of bolt, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to think about that. But the first thing is I don't have any strip stock that will do what I need to do here. So I'm going to need to take some measurements, and I actually need to get myself a fabric tape, like a tape used for tailoring, because I need something that I can lay on the curves and lay down measurements, and that really would be ideal, because at the moment I don't have anything that'll do that. I have a small plastic template that I use. It's got all kinds of, it's a drafting template essentially, and that's helpful, but it's not very large. I mean, it allowed me to like it'll span that distance, but it's not going to span that distance. So gonna have to get myself fabric tape. And I'm gonna want to get my own. My wife's probably not gonna want me to like have hers. Things that come into my shop often don't return in the same condition. And I'm gonna see if I can get myself some thinner on this, because it has to be flexible, because I have to be able to meet the curve. So I could do one down the center. I could do two, one on either side, and actually use these two holes, because I couldn't use them here. I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that. And obviously on the outside would be the spikes pointing outward. The fasteners on the inside would pass through it. They would also hold the strips in place. So that my idea of putting spikes on this has not changed. It's just that I may want to reinforce it to get a little bit more protection for the person using it. The rim is okay, but this isn't particularly thick steel. So putting a couple of reinforcement strips, or at least one, if not three, would definitely improve the item's rigidity, which is kind of what I want to do. Alrighty, so that's what I'm going to call it for right today. I have to go to work tonight, so I don't have a whole lot of time in the shop this morning. But yeah, all right, we're getting there. Sorry you listen to me ramble. Sometimes I'm coming up with ideas on the fly as I film these things. It's kind of the way I work. I blame my ADHD. Here I have the first of the strips that's going to be the reinforcement, and this is going to be the strip that goes down the center. So it's going to have a total of 8 fasteners holding it in place, so that will be 8 points on this. And these are all 3 inches off on center, off from each other, and then this is actually a little bit wider, because that's where my arm is going to be, in the center, where the user's arm is going to be. So I just came in 3 inches for those, and then 3 inches from the other end, which leaves about a 4-inch gap or so in the center, which is what I was looking for. So now I need to center this, clamp it in place, and then start to drill the holes, because I really can't get the spacing the way I want it until I've got this installed, and then that will really give me a good base to measure things off, because this is the piece I'm right here. This is a piece of 1 inch wide, 1/8 inch thick flat stock. I bought a 72-inch piece. Unfortunately, I had to buy new, this was $26. So that's, I mean, not a great price for a piece of stock, but I could turn bed frames into stock, don't get me wrong. It's very tedious. It is very tedious to do this, cutting a strip out of a full-length piece of bed frame. It was just easier and less hassle on me, and more consistent to do this in new stuff. And this is plain mild steel, which actually is, I think this is actually a little bit thinner than my and a little softer than the stuff that's actually in bed frames. So then making this curve is going to be a lot easier in this material. And because this is so soft, I was able to drill these out with a 3/8 inch drill bit from the get-go. I just made sure it was lubricated and zoom, zoom, zoom right on through. Because as opposed to like using a higher quality 1/4 inch drill bit, which I own a number of, then opening that hole up. This also gives me a nice clean hole. You get a really nice finish in there. This just comes out really beautifully drilled in these is mild steel. It's very pretty. That just makes me smile. So I need to clamp this in place, make sure I get it exactly in the center, or as close as I can as possible, and then start to drill the 3 holes, which I'll be using a cordless drill with. My Works Nitro to help me get those drilled, and then start pinning them in place with bolts. And once I get one pin, it'll make and it'll make I'll do the other end, and then I won't have to use clamps. I can just boom 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 drill them out, and using bolts, because it's just so much easier to use bolts than worrying about my spikes, which I'm going to have to make on my own by hand. Using bolts is just so much easier. But they're essentially just going to be temporary clamps as pinning devices. So let's get this set up, and then I can start drilling that first hole, which is going to be I'm probably going to end up having to clamp this in place, and I'm hoping I have enough space to clamp here and still get to that hole where the clamp won't interfere with that hole. I think I can do that. I think my clamp's going to work out, so I should just have like a 1/4 inch or so on the end, and it will give me clearance. We'll find that out as soon as I get this set up. So I just finished drilling up the holes for this, and as I said, I drilled the first 2 holes here. I got lucky, the clamp gave me a lot of space in there. This is how I actually drilled the rest of the holes. I clamped it to the table with these 2 Bremens, and I put a fairly heavy weight on that end there. I have no clue how much that weighs, but it's a bunch. It's solid steel. And I picked it up at a yard sale for $2. No idea what I'm going to do with it. So far, I've only ever used it as a hold down. But so I'm going to leave these in place until I get to the point stage, because now I know that I have everything lined up correctly, in the sense that I have this oriented correctly. I don't want to screw up and turn it around and then make my life miserable. So I'm going to leave this in here, and now I'm going to unclamp it, set it up, and start figuring out how long I need my 4 pieces on the sides to go. That's the next stage. And when I get there, then we're going to repeat this whole process, which is drill, clamp, pin, clamp, pin, drill, this again and again until I have all 4 pieces that I need set up. And then it's just going to be a process of doing a whole lot of points. I need to cut up a bunch of 3/8 inch rod, which I have. Again, I have this 7-foot piece right here in my hand, which actually came with these nice unions in here, which is awesome. Also came with some fasteners and some washers and which is also cool, and I got that all for free. I need to cut out 8, probably 16, maybe 20, probably 16 or 20, I think, pieces of rod, and they're all going to be 2.5 inches long. That will give me enough space to create for the hex nut that will be on the bottom, as well as the hex nut on top, plus the point coming out approximately that far. I figured that's a good length. I like that. It makes it long enough to be kind of menacing looking without being so long as it's completely unwieldy. So let's start the layout and figure out what I need for the next 4 pieces. I'm not 100% sure how I did it, but I didn't notice that I was obscuring the hole from my strap. The grip holes are unaffected. So these are the 2 holes that will hold the handle itself. They're fine. I am not 100% sure what I messed up as far as measurements are concerned. So this is asymmetric, but it's asymmetric. I can live with that. This hole is visible, this hole is hidden. So this hole I can't see, that's no big deal. And so what I'll do with this one is I will cover that up with a rivet, make it look like I meant to or something, and then I'm going to put 2 more holes in here. I will center them on this so that they look nice, and that will be the straps, because the strap doesn't need a specific distance. I just put that kind of arbitrarily. That's how far apart I put the whole two fasteners for the straps. So the fact that I make them a little bit closer isn't going to affect the functionality of the device. But that I can make go away in the sense that I can just cover it up. And I may do the same thing with the other holes that are still visible. 2 of these holes are not. The 2 squares holes, they're completely gone. They don't exist at all any longer. These 2 holes, which were a part of the mounting process, they still do exist. I may put rivets there as well, just to give the impression that it's maybe holding something, in the superstructure, and the person that can't see it so it looks a little bit less obvious that there's just random holes in there. And the rivets will give it, we'll literally plug them, so that's okay. So now I have to drill the holes for this. These are done, so those two are done, and I've discovered I think I'm out of 3/8 inch bolts. Can't find any more. I got one left, so I'm gonna probably end up leaving this here, this C-clamp here, until I get to the final stage where I start putting points on it. But that's no big deal. I can always use the fastener down on. What I'll probably do is I'll put the fastener here and then transfer that over there once I get that one drilled. So it's going to be a bit of a juggling, but it'll all work out. I'll get it figured out so that it stays together and it's lined up. Though technically, once I get the holes drilled, as long as that one end's pinned, I don't have to worry about it because they're all going to the same orientation. Yeah, sorry, I'm talking out loud. Alright, so got 6 more holes to drill, and then we're done with the assembly process. As far as the shield itself, and then I got to make a whole bunch of points. There we go, 20 points, and this is all that's left of a 7-foot piece of threaded rod. So yeah, I'm glad I got that for free. I don't have any more time today, so tomorrow I'll come back down here, at least I plan to, and I need to take one end and deburr it so that a nut will fit on there comfortably and it will fit into my drill. And then I'm going to set up my angle grinder here with the disc horizontal, and I'll spin it off with a flat wheel. Then I'll use a drill to hold the part and spin it, and I'll put a point on it. And I'll probably set the camera up and I'll give you a shot of what that looks like. I think I may have done that before. I don't know if I've done that before, but tomorrow you get to see what it looks like. But yeah, this is it's a lot of cutting. It is very tedious. It's because I cut it, I stop, mark one, cut it, stop, mark one, cut it, stop. Because I want them to be as accurate as possible, so I was using a small square and a marker. So these are as close as I can get them to 2.5 inches long, all being the same size, because I'm pedantic like that. Okay, for you, a second away, but for me, tomorrow. I've got my angle grinder all set up. I think I have the tension on this correct. I got to make sure I can turn my switch on and off correctly. I'll do that in a second. Got my Works Nitro here. This is the first time I'll be using this particular drill on this process. I'm going to put it through its paces and see how well it goes. I don't know how long that battery is going to last. Will it do 20 points? I have no idea if it will do 20 points. So first I got to do is turn this on. Alrighty, I'm going for about, I don't know, a 30-degree point. I'm not going super sharp on these, partly because I don't want to spend all day long here. I got 20 of these to do, but that's going to be sharp enough. So now I just got to keep doing that for 19 more points. It isn't particularly exciting, so I'm not going to make you guys watch that. But this is how the setup is. I do when it comes to putting points on my threaded rod sections. And it's one of the reasons I got this particular drill is because this will handle a 1/2 inch diameter rod. These are only 3/8. It's not a big deal. My other drill would handle that. But there are projects I want to do in the future that will be using 1/2 inch rods, threaded rod, for the same process, and I could not use those in my old drill. I'll be able to use them in this, so that's a bonus. I've got this in the low gear, and that's the perfect speed. Just pull the trigger, and it's a nice speed. It's not too fast, and it's doing exactly what I want it to do. So, yeah, there's my Works Nitro, and here's my my Makita. So no, actually, is this a Makita? I can't remember if this is a Makita. I think it's a Makita. I'll have to check it out when I take it down. I can never remember. I got tools of all different brands down here. Alrighty, so hope that was interesting. At least this section was interesting. The next section, I'm hoping I will have the thing done. Well, here it is strapped to my arm. This is, I know, an odd angle, but this is hard to do by myself. And this is what it looks like on the outside of the arm. I'm going to take it off in a second and go in detail, and I'm hoping I can get my wife to do a shot of me actually holding it. She's home at the moment. This thing is really, really cool. There's just no other way to say this. I am very, very happy with this result. So now I am going to take this off, and I'll show you some details, and then hopefully my wife can get me a clip with me wearing it. Alrighty, so here is the thing in the static situation. Now, I did decide to just go with 2 straight straps on this instead of 4 smaller ones. It was easier. It was less cutting on my part, less measuring, and I think it's stronger. I also think it looks cooler. So, you know, sometimes the rule of cool does win, but also, why do more work than I have to do, right? And I will admit that these little diamonds in here are a little crowded. Maybe I could have spread them out a little bit, but I'm still really happy with this. It came out incredibly well. The only thing about it that I'm not 100% is I would like to reinforce this edge. I just don't know how to. At the moment, I have not been able to come up with an idea that will work for me to reinforce this, because anything thin enough to bend around this oval will be probably too thin to be much of a reinforcement. So I'm going to play with that idea, and if I can come up with something in the future, I will. Okay, let's take a look at this. Be careful, because this thing has got lots of points on it. So here's what it looks like from the back, and you can see these are the 2 mounting holes which are not being used by anything in any way, shape, or form. These are ones where's the ones I riveted? There's the 2 I riveted up, so those are now no longer a problem. There was, here is the screw up hole I made, so that one's now gone. So again, you can't see it. I did end up putting a rivet in each end of the main one, because the distance from here, the strap was coming up off the surface of the disc a little bit, so I drilled it and I put a rivet in there just to kind of pinch that in place, just for aesthetics mostly on that one. But these are 3/8 inch rods, and these are kind of chunky bolts. These are nuts, rather. These are nuts I found at an estate sale. They're actually larger diameter as far as the external is than your average nut. I have no idea why. It's the same internal diameter, the same internal thread. But these are bigger than standard 3/8 inch nuts. I think I've got a 3/8 inch nut. I'll show you. 1 second. So you can, that's a big difference. But they're both 3/8 inch nuts. I have no idea why there's such a big difference, but there is a big difference. Just using that strap again here. This is just a belt I picked up at a thrift shop for $1. This again was cut out of that piece of scrap steel I'd found at a thrift shop for I don't know what it was. I liked it because of this shape, and I'm like, I can make handles of that. I'm going to get at least 4 handles out of that piece of steel, and it cost me $4, I think. So that's $1 a handle. Mat was free. Tape I already had. The disc itself was free. The rods for the points were free. So this is not an expensive process as far as materials goes, but it was a hell of a lot of work. There's a lot of effort going into this thing. This is not a cheap project as far as my labor is concerned. I put quite a few hours in this, and I had working on it in my head for for weeks in my head, planning this and working things out, trying to solve problems before I encountered them. One big bonus I will say with absolute conviction is that now that I have higher levels of serotonin in my brain, thanks to antidepressants, modeling things inside my head is much easier. Much easier for me. I can see things in my head in a way that I couldn't see them in the past, and I can solve problems before I actually encounter them, which is so nice. I'm wasting less time, I'm wasting less materials and effort, I'm getting less frustrated because I can kind of break down these concepts in my head and like kind of do 3D modeling inside my own skull before I get around to making the projects. So it's saving me so much work and so much frustration, and it's making the whole process more satisfying and more fun. Like when I did this over here, I made this entire shelving unit. I designed this in my head. I designed this with these pieces of L bracket from a bed frame, and this is just balusters, so wicked cheap. Holds up those bins beautifully. I got such a serotonin boost when I got done with this, and that white section is going to get something done to it in the near future, and I've already got the components for it, so I'm happy about that. So yeah, this spike shield is just bloody awesome. This is so much fun. So now I'm gonna go get some shots for this and for this video, as well as my DeviantArt page, which is the permanent home of the stills of my builds. And you should follow me there, and you should also follow me on Instagram, where I post bargains. You'll see like scrap I find, salvage things I get real cheap from yard sales and estate sales, as well as sometimes sneak previews, and of course cute cat pictures. And who doesn't love a cute cat picture? So thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I hope you'll come back for the next one.